So to start off, here's a creature story that in hindsight probably isn't all that scary. But it makes me feel uncomfortable sleeping in the open woods every time I think about it. So my uncle has this awesome 100-year-old cabin up in the Sierra Nevada. It's well maintained and furnished and about 1,000 feet from the river, and it's also one of the few places that I can go see shooting stars every single night. The only things to really worry about up there were poison oak and rattlesnakes, and both of those were fairly easy to avoid if you knew where to look. That, and there were these creepy entrances to all these abandoned gold mines that littered the mountain. I always stayed away from those because I saw this documentary as a toddler where this guy, back in the 1800s, fell down like an airway or a mine shaft and ended up getting wedged about 100 feet into the mountain. The town couldn't get him out and tried keeping him alive by lowering down food and water, but he eventually died after several weeks of exposure, and they couldn't retrieve the body. Apparently it's still down there to this day. So, because that's a fucking terrifying scenario, I just avoided those entirely. Anyway, back to the story. One night, my brother and I fall asleep in a tent out on the porch, and my dad is out there with us, sleeping on an air mattress, just outside. I wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of stomping and branches crunching under heavy weight. They're not human footsteps. I thought at first it might have been a deer, but they kind of tend to act like ghosts and are just ridiculously quiet around there. So I smell it before I hear it, and I suddenly remember that I am in bear country. And as I recall this fact, I hear heavy sniffing and breathing just outside the porch fence, which means that this black bear is about 3 feet away from my tent. I don't see it, but it's definitely out there. I heard it stay there for a while, and I heard it move around the porch, probably looking for a way up. The whole time I keep my breathing down to almost nothing so it can't hear me. There's no gate on the stairs going up to the porch, and all this thing needs to do is find them, go up it, and it'll be right on top of my sleeping dad. Thankfully, it never did, and eventually just turned around and went back the way it came. Today, I know that black bears are more or less big pussies when it comes to humans. They will attack if an opportunity like this presents itself, or if you're messing around with its cubs. But otherwise, all you need to do is surprise it by making a bunch of noise and appear threatening, and they'll run off. So since then, we've blocked the staircases every night, so that doesn't happen again. Even so, I sleep inside every time I'm over there. Okay, so this next one, I'm a little fuzzy on. So I'm not 100% on the full details. I mean, maybe I was dreaming when this happened, or maybe it was actually real. Dear God, I hope I was dreaming. So I'll tell you the part that I know for sure happened, and then I'll tell you the parts that I think happened. So, when I was in middle school, I slept in the room on the ground floor while the rest of my family slept upstairs. My bedroom window faced the side yard and had this useless set of bamboo blinds that just let the light right through. They fit the rest of the room though, as I had this really cool jungle military theme featuring bamboo walls, camouflage tarps, and a metal cot, like you'd see in boot camp. One night though, I'm just laying there in the dark when I hear knocking on my window. I don't see anyone, but I see this shadow behind the blinds. At first I thought it might have been the wind pushing a tree branch against the window, but after a minute, the knocking came again. This time I heard a voice say,
"Hey, are you awake? I see you."
I felt a chill going down my spine. It was a guy's voice. I didn't know anyone who would bother trying to come up to my place in the middle of the night, so I hunched down, grabbed my dagger, and slowly brought it up behind the blind and just lightly scraped one end of the window to the other to make this shrill sound like they do in horror movies. I figured I'd creep the creep out. And it must have worked because he left and never came back. This is where I can't confirm any more of the story, because I seem to recall that this happened 2 times afterward. The second time was much worse. It was raining and I had the windows slightly cracked open to let me hear the rain, and I had a pole behind it so intruders couldn't just slide it open enough to climb in. This time when I heard the knocks, I was pretty sure it was actually the wind this time, until another voice called out to me. This time it was a child's voice, and it said,
"Are you there? Can you let me in? I'm cold. I can see you."
This time I freaked out and wasn't nearly as level-headed as I was the last time. I just put the blanket over my head and waited for the voice to go away. I guess it did, because when I woke up later, there was no sign anyone had been there. Not even any footprints in the mud. The last time, however, was, in my opinion, the worst. At this point, I was in high school, and I had the lights turned on and was just returning from an evening snack. I heard a distinct tapping from the window and heard a woman's voice say,
"Hey there. I see you in there. Can you let me in?"
I froze, not sure what to do. Being a high schooler, I was just horny little teenager, and part of me wanted to actually open that window and let this woman in. Admittedly, maybe I thought it would end in the happy ending you see in every porno. Yeah. But the way she said her words, something about it just didn't sit right with me. I didn't know any women that actually had any sort of interest in me. So I quickly turned off the light and went to check the window. Before I could pull up the blinds, I heard nails screeching down the window. They were doing it for way too long. The woman started to say slowly,
"Daniel. Daniel. I know you're in there. Let me in."
I froze as she delivered my name. In any other scenario, this should have been arousing to a young teen guy. But I was just creeped out by it. I decided to just go to bed and ignore it again. I then realized that if this was a girl that I might have actually had a crush on, I could at least see her face and then catch up with her later. So I got back up after 5 minutes of this happening and went to go lift the blinds. Then the voice called me again, but this time it changed. No longer was it a seductive woman, but a distortion. Not like a demonic voice, but like an electronic distortion. Like it'd been run through a guitar amp. It kept calling me to let her in, and scratched at the window. I just immediately noped and grabbed my dagger and slept with it on my chest. It never came back after that, and I wonder if these were actually dreams, since each encounter happened over the course of several years. But they all felt real, like just as real as any other time I went to bed. Nothing felt faked or imagined, so I have to believe it was real. It had to be real. I mean, the memory is simply too vivid. Okay, so this last one, especially due to the nature of the story I just said, is probably going to get called out as pure bullshit. I'll have you know, while I am religious, I'm not really one for the paranormal. I'm open to suggestion if there is convincing evidence, and I'll believe you if said evidence is scientifically and logically damning. But I've always been skeptical of reports and sightings of ghosts, aliens, or other cryptids. However, what I am about to tell you, unlike the other story, I know for sure actually happened. And I have no explanation for it. I can neither confirm or deny what I saw was a monster or demon or cryptid, but it was an animal. And it was real. And it was unlike any species I have ever known. I will not blame you for calling me a liar. If I hadn't seen the damn thing for myself, I wouldn't believe it either. So sure, take this story with a grain of salt. But it wouldn't be in this video if I didn't believe it to be 100% true. Anyway, I digress. So, it was in the middle of summer, and I had the house to myself. My brother was staying at a friend's house, and my parents were on a romantic getaway. So I decided to play video games until my eyes failed me. I was playing COD 4 until I heard a tap on the sliding glass door. My brother has this cat that loves to stay outside in the backyard until she gets too cold in the evening and wants to come back inside to eat and sleep. I got up to let her in, but when I went to unlock the door, I stopped. What was looking back at me through the glass was not my brother's black cat. It had the same kind of black fur, but I did not recognize this creature. It faced me on its hind legs and looked like one of those pudgy, fat rat decorations around Halloween. Only this thing was standing at least 2, maybe 3 feet off the ground. Its paws were also very rat-like, with long pinkish toes and tiny white claws. Its face was elongated, and my first impression was maybe it was a possum, since we have those around here, but the snout was too skinny and devoid of fur, revealing a pink face. It had a set of tusks protruding as well, and the eyes were massive and black and reflected the light off the TV. I saw no ears. It was almost penguin-like, but it had rat-like hands close to its chest, and I honestly thought it was fake at first. It was completely still and just didn't move. I thought someone took this weird statue and placed it in front of the door. But it was so strange and so sudden, I couldn't move for a long while. We probably stared at each other for 5 minutes. It was almost invisible in the darkness, but I decided I needed a better look at it, so finally I moved forward to turn on the porch light. But as I moved forward, it darted away, which surprised me. I didn't actually expect it to move. I flicked on the light and opened the door, and it was running on all fours and leaped into the pool like an otter, dragging a black bushy tail behind it. It swam with surprising speed, hopped out, and ran into the garden, and I never saw it again. The cat, at the same time, ran out from her hiding spot after hearing the door open, and ran inside like she had been chased. I just kinda stared blankly, wondering if I had actually seen it or if I was hallucinating. I decided since the ripples in the pool were still moving after being disturbed, I decided it was real. I immediately looked up any animal matching that description. Nothing. Today, at best, the closest thing that matches the description is the Niffler from Fantastic Beasts, but this was much taller and had tusks, and the eyes were more centered and large like a lemur, and much less cute from the one in the movie. But it's the closest I can find, and this was back in 2009, 7 years before Fantastic Beasts was even a thing. So, yeah, believe what you will. But I know what I saw.